Hello, everybody. I am here in the studio. I'm doing something a little bit different. I wonder if I can prop this up. I should just get my thing to prop it up, but that would require extra work on my part. Well, there you just saw the ceiling. I hope everybody is super healthy and safe right now. I am taken in the news as you all are right now. We've got a little bit of a situation right now with our vice presidential pick. You've got Joe Biden now auditioning vice presidential candidates, and he has committed in a presidential debate. He committed to supporting a woman, to having a woman, and if you look at who the lineup is, because I believe we haven't had a real women's movement, electoral movement, to the capacity we need, there's not a lot of options. There aren't that many senators and aren't that many congresswomen in office. And of course, this is something that we at Matriarch, I'm on the board of Matriarch, we're working very hard to addressing, but it's not something that happens, if we're going at this rate of reaching parity meaning an equal number in Congress and in the Senate, then we're going to have to change our strategies, because really the years of the women in which we've done well have been years when the Republicans have screwed up, when the Democrats have won the House back. And so it can't be dependent or tethered to those strategies. It has to be tethered to some sort of, strategy for success that's based on policy and organizing all the time. So give me a second. I'm just gonna watch everything on my end. It's happy hour here where I am. I am drinking my kombucha. That's what I do now, is I drink kombucha. And I definitely need it, because if Amy Klobuchar is our vice president, then we've got an issue. So here's my take on Amy Klobuchar. I don't know for sure if she's really their pick. I think we're learning a lot as this goes on. Supposedly it was somebody from the campaign, the Biden campaign, that leaked this, that Amy Klobuchar was being assessed, and vetted. That also means nothing. Like, you could have a list of 20 people being vetted. Maybe it was to signal to corporations that he's with them. I think a lot of folks are saying that, the establishment is messaging to corporations and to banks that they're not going to go after them too hard, especially after this very contentious primary where you had progressives and people leaning really progressive, folks who hadn't been for Medicare for all suddenly for Medicare for all. So, ultimately, like as we saw with Nancy Pelosi's messaging bill, a bill that was going to go nowhere in the Senate, she still couldn't throw a bone to progressive. She still had to say that she, supported lobbyists, even though they weren't getting anything. Just a reminder, thank you. I think it was Party who just showed up in there. Thank you for reminding me. If you haven't already, definitely click subscribe, like, and share. We need to support our independent media. If you guys don't know, a lot of us are struggling under COVID. We were doing great. It was an election cycle. Now we don't have a primary. People are burned out. They're stressed. They're home. They're sick. They're working, long hours. They're teaching their kids. It's very hard. So the consumption online is not at the same level as it was before. And for me, we have a new show. So we've had to make a lot of adjustments. We have a great team like, hey, Harvey K, look at that. Just had to say hi. We have a great team back in New York, and they're hustling super hard because this is a show that we have to build. So if you're not already clicking like and subscribe, please do so. And if you're not a patron already, join us on patreon.com, because on patreon.com/the Nomiki show, we put our show up early. We put special content up. And we have mugs. I bought these mugs back when we thought we were doing live events, which are no longer in existence. So you can get a mug, or you can get a bag. We have one over here. Let me show you this. I'm very excited about this because, it means you're real now, right? This is one of our bags. We have stickers too, which are on my computer. There you go. There's the sticker. So definitely want to be a patron. And then this is a little behind the scenes action of what our studio looks like. The table. I have makeup This is important because I often have to do my own touch-ups. All right, is this merch for sale outside the US? It is. We have to figure it out, though. We're still figuring things out. We're going to have a new site up pretty soon, so please be patient. But if you want it sooner rather than later, email us at thenomikishow@gmail.com. So my take on Amy Klobuchar is I just don't understand why they were teasing it out. I don't understand why the Biden campaign thought this would be good, because she's immediately being trashed online. It's almost like an early vetting. They have their own vetting, and then there's like a public vetting. And if you recall with Tim Kaine, they didn't do that. I mean, they had a list that they teased out. It was a very long list, but he was just announced, and that was it. And then we were all like, oh, Tim Kaine, so conservative, doesn't even really believe in abortion or protecting women's right to choose. Yeah, that sounds like a perfect person for a female candidate, like, who's trying to make herstory. So I don't understand what the point of teasing it out. Initially, I thought maybe it was coming from another potential vice presidential nominee, someone else on that list, and it probably still could be. I mean, politics is rowdy. Maybe there's multidimensional chess happening here. You saw yesterday, or this morning, I think, that Warren, she has suddenly come out as like not for Medicare for all. Warren, who is a co-sponsor of the Medicare for All bill. Warren, who worked closely and lambasted Biden for not supporting Medicare for all. This is like bizarro land. Of course they think it's gonna work because they know people's memories are short, and ultimately everybody's ambitions are ahead of what the reality is. I don't think Elizabeth Warren's gonna be vice presidential pick. I just don't. I know a lot of folks think she's the best option. She might be with this crew. But I think we're also, we haven't seen a large list of who he's considering. I think that would be healthy and helpful for him to do so, like the Clintons did. I'm just gonna do a quick little search of existing senators and congresswomen right now that are women. Women, I'm just Googling it while I'm on the line with you. Women in Congress and Senate. See, I have master Google skills, but I also know who does this. So Rutgers has the Center for Women in Politics, I believe, or American Women in Politics, and they create a good list. Unfortunately, there's not enough out there. So let's just talk about it. So you have 23% of Congress is made up of women, 23.7%, and 26% in the Senate, so 26 women. They're not all Democrats, right? 101 women total, so it's 23% in total. There are folks like Tammy Baldwin, she could be on the short list. Catherine Cortez Masto, who's from Nevada, she's a new senator, she was elected in 2016, she could be on the list. Maria Cantwell is from Washington. There are a lot of women that are not being talked about publicly because, they're not publicly campaigning for it. Stacey Abrams she clearly hired a press person to go out there and push this agenda. So, when you see someone show up on like multiple shows and have op-eds and all, that is done with the press team. It doesn't just come to the reporters suddenly that they need to call up Stacey Abrams to get on The View. They're being pitched. Do you remember the woman on MSNBC? This is Hyde 12, thank you. Do you remember the woman on MSNBC that said Bernie made her skin crawl? Always thought she was nuts, but now that's how I feel about Biden. He's creepy. Yes, I do know who she is. She's from New York. It's frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating, this process. It's like another version of the primary in which everybody reverses their positions. That's what kind of makes me mad about Elizabeth Warren not fully supporting Medicare for all. Of all moments to support Medicare for all, maybe, just maybe, it should be when it's polling the most popular as an already very popular piece of legislation. When everybody is realizing the BS about COBRA and Nancy Pelosi's push for expanded COBRA, when your insurance is tied to your employment and we don't even know who's going to be employed after this. And employers already didn't like that. So I just don't understand the logic behind Warren's thinking. I think it's politically naive to come out more conservative, even if she wants to be vice president. Or maybe not. Maybe it's some genius game. So here's some other women in the Senate. that are Democrats. Well, Dianne Feinstein, she's not going to get it. Kirsten Gillibrand from New York. I think I don't hear her name on the list. I think she wants to be president, and I think she ran a not a great presidential campaign. Thank you, Alice. Love. Thank you, new follower. Love your show. I appreciate that, Alice. Thank you. Yeah, so I think, Kirsten Gillibrand is probably thinking long term, but, her believing Joe Biden over Tara Reade and basically erasing what she's made her issue for the last, since she was elected to the Senate, supporting other women and believing women. I don't know. You guys are talking about my bouncing phone. I know I have a tripod, but it's got like 9 things attached to it. I do have another one, but I need to get the iPhone. I don't know. I decided to do it this way. Be nice. Like, bear with me. There are worse things in the world than a shaky camera phone. It's because it's my left hand. Ugh. But I feel like I cover the microphone if I use my right hand. All right, and so let's see who else we have here. We have Kamala Harris, of course. Julian, thank you for loving the bouncing. It's awesome. Yeah, it's an effect I was trying to go for. Kirsten Gillibrand, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, she's got the K-Hive. She's got a lot of online support. Barack Obama definitely loves her, and he said that publicly. Yes, Larry the Truth, Amy is keeping innocent black men in jail. Absolutely. And I'm glad that she was pushed on this during the primary. But it's as if all of the primary issues are erased during the general. Because, number one, there's not much of a general going on. If you guys watched the show this week, I talk about Joe Biden's sort of non-existent, very expensive campaign. And I'm probably going to go into more depth about this later, but how this is likely to be a very expensive race. They're not having to invest in putting field together. They're not having to organize, volunteer armies and all the operations that you have to do normally. Even if the big name consultants don't want to do it, they still have to do it. But they still move most of their money to the big ad buys and figure out a way to make more money. Well, this is a perfect opportunity for them because COVID and the pandemic are a cover. They're a great cover for folks who want to make a lot of money on a campaign that is already becoming extremely clear that they're focusing, at least in the general election up against Trump, on maybe a couple states and a couple of small demographics. In fact, this vice presidential campaign conversation is great for progressives because then they don't actually have to do a lot of work. They don't have to make real promises to progressives. They create a committee, the task force, that makes suggestions to another volunteer committee, the platform committee at the DNC, which is already outnumbered by corporate folks and Biden picks and Tom Perez picks. So that platform committee writes a platform that nobody has to stand by. So unless you're telling us you're not going to appoint Larry Summers and you're not going to have bankers and you're going to, what I want concretely from the vice president, if he's elected, is I want to know who he's appointing to the cabinet. Now, if anything, that is going to signal in a time of crisis what kind of leadership you're going to have in the face of what is likely to be the largest economic disaster since the Great Depression. And we have Harvey Kane here, so he knows exactly, he's an expert on this. He knows what we're talking about. So, these are fun little games to have, like who's going to be the VP pick. And they're important, of course. They're signaling. They usually don't make a big difference electorally. Joe Biden, they're already betting on Joe Biden because they think he's going to win what is traditionally called the Rust Belt. They already, pushing Joe Biden because they think that he's going to win back the Obama voters that Hillary didn't get. And I'm reading what Harvey says. I am a couple of minutes behind in watching, but I get such a kick out of my friend Nomiki trying to balance her phone on whatever while exuding her natural energy enthusiasm. You crack me up, Harvey. All right, you guys are distracting me. So, he's already focusing on a key demographic. And I actually think that demographic, as I said in my opening for my show this week, I don't think they really care if Joe Biden doesn't, is a little racist, or if he's not fighting back against Trump's racism, because maybe they're more comfortable, or sexism. So I think, Joe had to say and stick by having a woman as a vice presidential pick. And I think he's going to signal, as Harvey said to me offline, that they need to signal to the banks and to big business that, at the end of the day, they still have their backs. Thank you, Kip Miles, for the $4.99. Much love. So, when we look at this list, as we go through, I'm looking at the senators. So we have Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire, not in the mix. No one's talking about her. Mazie Hirono from Hawaii. No one's talking about her on this list. Amy Klobuchar, of course. Patty Murray in Washington State. She could be an option. Jean Shaheen could be an option. Jacqueline Rosen from Nevada, the other one she just won her election in 2018. And Kirsten Sinema. So, and Debbie Stabenow and Elizabeth Warren. So we know who's on the list. Who's campaigning right now to get on the slate. And then, of course, you have congressional picks. So I think he's probably going to want somebody that appeals and won't turn off the voters he's trying to win over. And that is, I think, if you pull back the curtain, there's probably real conversations about how left they want to appear to be. Do they want somebody who is lining up with progressives or trying to woo progressives? Do they want somebody who has a lot of an online presence? Or do they want somebody who seems more traditional? Do they want somebody who, even though she's a woman, doesn't turn off a certain kind of guy that votes for Trump? Do you see what I'm saying here? And I think so my friend Dimitri's on here, so he's right. I'm pretty sure that Klobuchar and Buttigieg got something out of getting out of the race early and endorsing Joe Biden. Absolutely. Does that mean VP? I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's very odd, the timing of announcing Amy today. It could have been to signal to the other women to stop campaigning, to stop going on TV and making the case. I mean, there was a very awkward segment, as I'm sure you saw, with Stacey Abrams and Joe Biden. And I got a press release today saying Stacey Abrams endorses Joe Biden. What? Like, obviously, I thought you did. Eamon, I don't know how to say your name, I'm so sorry. Eamon Minguez, I hope I said that right, made a joke about staplers flying around. She of course ate her salad with a comb. So she's got a lot on her, and I think you're not going to see a lot of folks, at least at this stage, come out from her office that have been mistreated, because now we're in the general election, and probably people that she had hired are more fall-in-line Democrats. And the primary is a little bit different. I think Kamala is a favorite among the future of the Democratic Party establishment. I just don't know if that's going to cut into the voter base that they're trying to win, which is a very, it's a voter base that does not reflect the National Democratic Party or the future of the Democratic Party. It is a group, they're really just trying to win over the Trump voters that had voted for Obama before Fox News spent 24/7 attacking Obama and calling him a birther, or the birther movement. So if you see what I'm saying here, Joe has himself in a bind. He needs a woman that is not going to piss off the misogynist. He's trying to win the misogynist vote. That's ultimately it. And that is why Trump keeps talking about China, because he wants to reiterate that he was better on trade than Biden and the Obama administration were. You're going to hear a lot of that over and over again. And Steve Bannon has been signaling that for a long time. He wants to talk about China over and over because they want to make the Democrats out to be globalists who really made income inequality what it is today and pushed out manufacturing and, of course, sent jobs overseas, and they want to push racism, and their language is very traditional now. It's traditionalist populist. I don't think that works as much this time around with Trump. I think that there's his disapproval ratings are high enough to be concerned, but he has a base that is so solid. And it's not a large base, but it is a solid base. And that's something the Democrats have had a really tough time doing, is solidifying their base. They have a tough time because of these contentious primaries. They've had a tough time because they're not willing to budge in the slightest bit in taking on monopolies and taking on big business and taking on the banks. And that stuff catches up with them. You know, Hillary Clinton did not motivate a large enough group of voters that were in the traditionally working class and poor to turn out the way that she needed. She was already talking about expanding the electorate, but she didn't have her base. If you don't have your base, you don't have the election. You don't even have a chance. Hang on, we have one more super chat. I just missed it. I love these super chats. D-Doc, what's up? Hey, Nomiki, kind of off topic, but do you think New York and other states will ultimately get any Fed funding? Worried about New York City layoffs. Very important question. I just interviewed today Lindsey Boylan, who is running for Congress in the 10th Congressional District which is on the west side of Manhattan and downtown and a little bit into Brooklyn. It's Jerry Nadler's seat. And if you remember, Jerry Nadler was one of the big voices pushing for the Trump impeachment and leading the Trump impeachment. He was replaced by Adam Schiff, of course. But Jerry Nadler has been in office for 30 years. And in that conversation, Lindsey and I talk a lot about how the federal funding will be dispersed, if it will be dispersed. And part of the disconnect, and just to give you a little bit of a teaser, but I hope you listen to the show, which comes out on Patreon this weekend, and it goes live on Monday here on YouTube, of course, for our premiere. But on the show, she talks about the disconnect between the federal representation and local. And if you live in New York, in New York City, it's very clear how our federal lawmakers, it's like they don't even have real conversations with local leaders and the state government. You always see these dynamics between the state and the city, but when it comes to finding out how it trickles from federal government, they don't want to get involved. They don't want to get involved in the messiness. And this has sort of been the reputation consistently. So you definitely want to check out that interview. Lindsey is fantastic. She, really went after the WFP yesterday because the WFP didn't even call her for an interview after she kept calling them. They endorsed Nadler, and Nadler has only passed 3 things in the last 30 years, but they were like meaningless, like naming after a building, naming the previous office holder a building after him. And then Elizabeth Warren endorsed Nadler. She had all the choices in the world to endorse someone. So he's clearly calling in the favors. You definitely want to hear the interview. She's very, very impressive. So ultimately, Joe has a problem on his hands. I still don't understand why it was teased out. Amy Klobuchar was teased out. It's only going to get her more criticism, unless it was a signal to the rest of the women who are vying for this position to stand down and this is the choice. I think it would have been better if Joe put forward a list of names, because don't forget, he has this crazy committee that is selecting the vice presidential picks, and one of them is Chris Dodd, who's on this committee. Chris Dodd, Google it when you have a second, the waitress sandwich. This is not a man who stands for women. It's not like he's looking at this list and saying, who's going to be the best woman to represent half this country, to lean into feminism, or I don't know what they're trying to do, to be completely honest. I'm just, playing it out a little bit. Chris Dodd. Yeah, Chris Dodd is the guy for you. Oh my God. It's very frustrating. So, all right, so those are some senators I just went through. House of Representatives is a little bit different, but maybe he'll go with someone local. Maybe he'll go with a mayor. Maybe he'll go with a governor. I think in the past, traditionally, it's been sort of a surprise when they end up picking the person. I mean, remember when Sarah Palin was picked? They were like, who? Literally, who? And Tim Kaine, I don't think anybody thought, when they first looked at the list that Hillary Clinton put out, I don't think anybody thought that they were going to go with Tim Kaine. Of course, they wanted to win Virginia, but we saw how that went. So we will see. On that note, make sure to click like, subscribe, share, and remember that our show goes live on Patreon at patreon.com/The Nomiki Show over the weekend. You can listen to it in entirety. We break it up into pieces. We have extra content. And now we have merch. I'm thinking of some other things that I can offer now that things have calmed down and I have more of a routine here. I can do more stuff for our patrons. But, this is the new norm. So, and our team is very focused. So we're trying to give all of you patrons and thank you to us, because we're a new show, so we depend on Patreon to survive, to have this studio that we built in my grandparents' house. If only my grandparents could see this, then they would be walking into the shot. Fun little story. So I came out here for Christmas one year, and my grandparents were still alive, and they were a unit. They were very curious. They always wanted to know what was going on. They're always in your business. Very sweet, but like, you know, my grandmother would always I'd have somebody come over for a minute and she would want to get in the conversation. So Fox News called me. I think it was Megyn Kelly's show. And it was like December 26th. It was like the day after Christmas. And the studios were all shut down. So normally they send you at a studio, you do a live on camera there, but they were shut down because of the holiday. And so they said, no, worry. We're going to send you a camera crew to where you are and we'll do an interview. And I'm like, wait, you're gonna come to my grandparents' house? Okay. So we set up in the living room, which is very, you know, if you have an immigrant family, there's definitely a taste. Especially if they came over, you know, in after World War II. So the camera crew comes and my grandmother comes out and brings cookies and she's like, oh, would you like some Greek cookies? And she's, you know, handing them out and they're just trying to focus and get this shot done. And my grandfather's sitting there and he's asking all these questions. What is this? What is that? It was so funny. So anyways, we filmed a live shot, a debate from my grandparents' living room, and it's the cutest picture. But my grandmother was so sad that they had to go so fast because she wanted them to sit down and have coffee and cookies. All right, so we had a question here. Thank you so much. Great work. Love Jamie Peck too. You're both awesome. I love Jamie. She brings so much knowledge to that show, and it's great to have her as my other, you know, woman on the Majority Report. I learn from everybody. I go on Majority Report every Tuesday, as you guys know, and. Yes, I'm definitely going to be running for VP. That sounds great. And you guys are asking about the home studio and why I'm in Arizona. So my parents don't live in Arizona, but my mother is immunocompromised and she has cancer. And so she immediately knew that she needed to get out of the city and for a lot of reasons, and she couldn't take care of herself. So I had to come out and she was like, you know, why don't we go to your grandparents' house? It's empty. My grandparents passed away a few years ago and we're all trying to figure out in the family what to do with this. With their house, and very grateful we have it because I can be here with my mom and my dad came out finally, and we are you know, all taking care of each other right now, and I'm very grateful for this time with them. And I'm also worried about my home, and I'm worried about New York, and I don't want to pay my rent, frankly. And not just that I don't want to pay my rent. I have an empty apartment, and the rent is extreme. You know, it's New York, so it's high, and I worry because like so many of us out there, you know, we're worried about our financial stability. So even with the show, you know, it's crowdsourced. So we all have to, it's very hard, very, very, very hard for everybody. And, you know, especially folks who are on the front lines, who are already struggling. And New York has the worst income inequality in the country. JC Nova, I have to say hi. I didn't see you on there right away. You worked my campaign. You're fantastic. Love you. Thank you for tuning in. So with that, I actually may go back to New York soon. I have to figure out what to do with all my stuff. But thank you for the love. Thank you for the super chat, Hyde. I appreciate it. And in terms of my set, somebody asked a question. I got advice from our producer, Dorsey. He did all the research on like what works and what doesn't. I had to set it up. There's been a lot of mistakes along the way. Okay, so this is just a backdrop, and we got these little lights. I don't know if I can show, I don't think I can show you without knocking things down. We have these two little lights that you can change the color, and they're actually pretty cheap. I thought everything was gonna be way more expensive. Things have gotten much cheaper. So those little lights, you can change the color to different colors. And then I put together this desk that I got for like, I think like I say how much they cost because, you know, I thought this was going to cost like $5,000 and it didn't. So we got this glass desk, which I thought it was kind of a cable newsy look. It doesn't even show up on camera. So that's my desk, and this chair I got on sale, which was pretty, you know, affordable. And the lights were really cheap. So I have two of those big lights right there on each side. See, this is an Arizona room. And then we have the ring light, which goes around the webcam. And that just softens, this is not the normal lighting, you'll see it when I film. And then the Rode microphone, which is it's been a little problematic, I'm not gonna lie. And I think I might get another one. We might replace it because I'm having a lot of issues with it. I don't know if it's just my system. And then the Logitech webcam, which was about 5 times the price of what it should have been because they were sold out. So it was still, not super expensive. All in all, pretty affordable. What am I drinking? I'm drinking kombucha. It's like 5% alcohol. I've had 1 sip. That's what I drink now. It's happy hour. But I have to tape my monologue still. So sometimes if it's been a long day, I will do that. Okay, guys, I am off to go tape the monologue. Oh, wait, we've got questions. Nicholas, Peter, Kotsopoulos, are you Greek? Obviously. Why isn't the left pushing for Sanders for VP, despite promise to name a woman, which is only tactic for neutralizing Sanders? I think that I just don't know if they'll listen. I think there's a lot of things the left should be pushing for Biden. And I think, honestly, it's an age thing. I think folks are worried that you're going to have 2 candidates in their 70s, and that's concerning for the future of the Democratic Party. Actually, that's a good point, though. When you look at this list of women, who represents what you think the establishment wants the future of the Democratic Party to be, right? I think if Biden had not already said he was going to support a woman, I think he would have picked Cuomo for a lot of reasons. They have the same consultants. Cuomo wants to set himself up to be the president. He's obviously grandstanding right now. So I think it's important to look at that list, like who's young enough to represent the future and who's not radical enough to turn off these voters that they're targeting, who might be turned off by someone who's just doesn't reflect what they want to see in the country. It's pretty sickening. Like, Hillary Clinton leaned into being woke. I'm not saying that she was, but she leaned into it in many ways, the way that Warren did. But Biden is not at all. Every once in a while he'll throw something out there, but they're not even trying. Not at all. It's offensive. All right, Faye Day, DACA here, scared, but you keep me sane these days. Oh, that's very sweet. Listen, I think we're all processing this together and working our hardest to make sure that people stay engaged and don't tune out when these are the moments where it's the hardest not to tune out. It's the hardest not to be exhausted and not want to read. I don't want to read the news every day. It's just like so much Trump, so much bad news. I want to, sit outside, absorb the sun, and at the end of the day, we gotta focus. So I'm trying to focus my energy on the show and talking a lot about the infrastructure issues we have here in this country in terms of how we're responding to COVID. I want to talk about the political systems that have been blocking us along the way and what we need to do now in the future. And then personally, I'm putting all of my extra energy into Matriarch, into supporting these working class progressive candidates, women, who I believe if they don't do it this year, they're going to take over Congress very soon. And I think that's the future that at least I want to be a part of. And then there was just a question about the Navajo Nation. Great question. I'm sorry, I forgot. I can't see who asked it. I apologize. But the Navajo Nation has been hit the hardest by COVID. And one of our matriarch candidates that was just endorsed yesterday publicly is Ava Putsova, and she is running for Congress in Arizona. And she represents part of the Navajo Nation and has been talking about this for a while. So definitely check out her campaign. I am going to have her on the show pretty soon. So please, again, we do these extended interviews. We're going to be sharing them on Patreon, but you definitely want to listen to her. She is running against a guy. This is so nuts. She's running against a guy, Tom O'Halloran, who in 2016 was a Republican. And he is now a Democratic congressman in Arizona. And she, on the other hand, is a council member from Flagstaff. She fought for and led the fight for increasing the minimum wage to $15.25, I believe, that $15 and plus an hour. She fought for paid family leave and got it passed. She's super progressive. She's an immigrant. And I mean, having her voice in Congress would be transformational. She's running against a guy who was a Republican 4 years ago. So when people talk about flipping this district, you know, what flipping, you just turn to Republican Democrat. That doesn't mean that they're actually fighting for democratic values. We know how this works. So she's somebody you should definitely watch out for, and she's talking about the Navajo Nation and the injustices happening on their land. You know, we're going to do a whole show on this, a whole segment. So definitely stay tuned. But all right. Make this show fun by 5 p.m. We are exhausted of politics. All right. I'll do some more fun. I'm going to do more cooking episodes, but I had to come up with different recipes that I think you guys will all be into. So if you have ideas for recipes, and if you have ideas for international recipes that have some sort of political story, I know that sounds crazy, but if you have any, definitely email me, thenomikishow@gmail.com. I don't eat meat, so if they're vegetarian, that would be great. And then I will cook and talk. People were asking for that. I'm into it. Vegetarian cooking and politics. And maybe we'll weave in some story about where the food came from. And I can try. Listen, it's my grandmother's kitchen. That's like sacred. I would love to respect her kitchen that brought us so many great memories and great food. Okay. On that note, I'm going to make some eggplant. Sorry you're not there for it. I have to use the eggplant. All right, love you all. Take care. Make sure to click and share and like and subscribe and do all the things. Patreon.com/The Nomiki Show.